It is the best profession in the whole wide world, and it is possible to flourish in it. And here is something that's going to help us do that.
She told herself she couldn't do math, so veterinary medicine wasn't for her. Then she went on a 3-month road trip, listened to a voice she had been ignoring, and changed everything. Now she's dedicating her career to helping the profession she almost talked herself out of thrive. Andi Davison has been in and around veterinary medicine since 2001, and she has seen it from nearly every angle: private practice, university teaching hospitals, practice co-ownership, large animal, small animal, emergency, and everything in between. She is a licensed veterinary technician, married a veterinarian, and is someone who knows the highs and the hard days of this profession from the inside out. But what makes Andi's story so compelling isn't just what she's done, it's what she almost didn't do because she told herself she couldn't. She almost didn't pursue veterinary medicine because of math. She almost left the profession entirely when burnout hit her harder than she expected. And she almost didn't apply for the job that has become her dream. Today, Andi works as a positive change agent with Flourish Veterinary Consulting, bringing the science of positive psychology into veterinary medicine and helping teams and veterinary professionals at every level discover that thriving in this career isn't just possible, it's something we can actively build towards. In this conversation, we talk about Andi's journey from horse-obsessed kid to credentialed technician to well-being advocate, the moment burnout showed up in a way she'll never forget, what positive psychology actually looks like in veterinary medicine, and 2 simple but powerful tools she wishes every veterinary professional had from day one. Andi is warm, energetic, and deeply self-aware. Let's get to the conversation with Andi Davison. When did you know that you were interested in animals and potentially veterinary medicine?
Megan, first off, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here with you and your listeners. And to your question, when did it all begin, right? I am one of those veterinary professionals that has loved animals my entire life. As a kid, I had 485 million stuffed animals all over my room, right? So many of them that you could barely see my bed. And I would drag them all over the place with me. I was drawn to any animal. In fact, my family, they used to call me Ellie Mae because I loved the animals. I always wanted to go to wherever animals were. And so, yeah, it totally started at an early age from, gosh, I can't even remember a time where I wasn't drawn to animals.
Yeah. Now, you have told me that you are a big horse girl, and in fact, it's even part of your identity. I think you said it. So you said you grew up riding. Do you still remember like the first time you were able to ride, and how were horses incorporated into your childhood?
Oh, that's such a good question. It brings up a wonderful memory, a wonderful memory. I remember the first time I rode a horse for real, like past that trail ride at the Grand Canyon kind of thing, but like the first time I actually rode. And it was in school, elementary school. And my friend at the time, I remember her name was Carrie Wilson, and she took riding lessons at the local stable. And we were friends, right? And so one day she asked if I could go with her to her riding lesson. And I, being the animal kid, was like, horses are beautiful. I've always wanted to ride. Like, yay, I want to go. And so my mother agreed, which I wonder if she, realizes what she was agreeing to when she agreed to that. But she agreed to let me go have a lesson at the local lesson barn with Carrie Wilson. And I remember, I can close my eyes and see the little indoor arena at the barn in Michigan. The horse that I rode was named Shadow, bay mare. Like, I remember all the details right down to the minute I put my booty in the saddle and was like in the moment, right? Walking with all the rest of the students around, learning how to hold the reins, learning how to get balanced up there, feeling the horse underneath me. It was done. It was done. I loved it. I wanted more. I wanted to learn more. I wanted to come back next week. And so I started going with Carrie for riding lessons, which then, of course, blossomed into it being a very large part of my identity.
And you can tell by remembering all the details how much of an impact that probably had on you for your childhood and going forward. Now, you had mentioned that from there, you loved animals, and we become teenagers, and we learn things and see things. But one of the other things you shared with me is that you got the idea that you could not do math. And so your thoughts of going into more of a science centered career path, you felt like you had to put that aside. Do you mind sharing a little bit about that and kind of how you eventually got to maybe back to the idea of going into a veterinary career?
Yeah. Yeah. I struggled with math as a young person. And it was always something that I had trouble kind of wrapping my head around, understanding a little more about. It was something that my engineering father was very good at. And so why on earth was I not also good at it? And I wasn't inherently good at it. And so my brain quickly told me that I wasn't good. This is a very fixed mindset type of thinking, right? That I wasn't good at it, that I was never going to get good at it, that there was no point in trying because I was not created to do math. So why don't I find other things to do that don't involve math and geometry and algebra and all of those things? So fixed mindset. And so I did, right? I kind of did the minimum. I did what I needed to do in high school. I did what I needed to do in college. And I looked at some different paths that could take me, in exciting directions that didn't necessarily involve math. I did a lot of communications work in school. I did a lot of psychology work in undergrad. I did a lot of art history, which was really, really fun. But none of that involved math. So I thought, oh, okay, cool, cool. Like, I've got this. I don't need this thing that I'm inherently terrible at. Except that little voice in my head wouldn't shut up. And, as we do through life, we go down different paths, we do different things, we end up in different places for a reason. And there was that point in my life where that little voice got louder and louder and said, "Hey, Andi, remember how much you love animals and remember how important that is to you. You could make a difference there if you wanted to." And of course, I talked back to that voice and said, well, yeah, but I'm going to need math and I'm terrible at math and there's nothing I'm going to do to change that. And the voice was louder than the self-doubt in that it kept saying, yes, and you could still do this. Yes, and it's really important to you. Yes, and remember and look at how much you light up at the possibility of making a difference for animals. The math can't be that bad, can it? And so I decided to find out how bad it could really be, right? And so I sort of took that leap and thought, I want this bad enough and it's important enough to me that I'm going to figure it out when it comes to the math. I'm going to find a way to understand it. I'm going to, get tutors. I'm going to, find other ways to work through this because, yeah, math is a large component of veterinary medicine, but it's also something that I can figure out. I figured out a lot of things so far. So let's go figure this out too, which is growth mindset. There we go. Look at that.
And I think if I remember from our previous conversation, the voice got particularly loud when you went on a trip. And so I like to just bring that back up because I think it's helpful to have those moments of where we get out of our normal day to day. And for you, and you can share a little bit more about that trip, but maybe with nature or whatnot, and things are a little quieter around us, I think it allows the voice that we need to hear maybe be a little bit louder where we can't ignore it anymore. But I thought that was kind of a unique part of your story too.
You're right, Megan. It's really interesting that when we slow down a little bit, get out of the regular routine, that our priorities get louder. in a helpful way. So for me, I was finishing college, right, with all the expectations that come with finishing college. And I had no idea what I wanted to do, right? Like, I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. I didn't know. And so I had the opportunity to go on a big road trip around this entire beautiful, amazing, brilliant country and see all of the national parks and meet all of the beautiful people that are here. And I went on that trip with my very good friend, Becky. And it was just her and I. We had her truck and we'd outfitted the back of her truck to be like a little loft where we could sleep back there. And we had all of our stuff in a little, in like Tupperwares up underneath there. And we would go from campground to campground in national park to national park to national park and just experience outside. And we did that for, gosh, I want to say it was 3 months because we didn't really know what we wanted to do, right? So what? Okay, perfect timing. There's no obligation. There's no job to go back to. Like, let's go and experience some stuff. Let's go see what's out there. And we experienced some absolutely incredible moments. I mean, our country is beautiful. And to be able to see all of the brilliant, I don't know, nature and people and cultures that we have here is a lovely way to get out of your everyday routine. It's also a lovely way to get out of your own head. And I remember during this trip, there was a lot going on in my head, right? About what am I going to do next? What is important to me? What are my priorities? And I came to many realizations, one of which was how important it was to enjoy what you're doing every day and how important it was to be able to look forward to the day and be able to go into that day with hope and optimism as opposed to, oh, I have to go. An oh, I get to go would be so much more fulfilling for me. And that's, I think, the quiet moment that little voice in my head needed to be like, hey, you know what's fulfilling for you? You know what's important? You know what's meaningful for you? And the more I thought about it and the more space I had and the quiet I had and the permission that I gave myself to listen to that voice and think about what it was saying and think about what was possible, it really landed, right? Because I want to look forward to going into work every day. I want to know that I'm making a difference. I want to be able to get excited about the things that I get to do. And that was with animals. That was within veterinary medicine. And I came home from that road trip and it was about, I don't know, a couple weeks. It wasn't very long that I then put my application in at a couple of local animal hospitals because I wanted to understand more, right? Like, okay, what does it mean to actually be in veterinary medicine? What does it look like? How hard really is the math going to be? And so I did. I was like, all right, let's listen to that voice because I owe it to myself to give myself the chance to find something that gets me excited every morning when I wake up.
Yeah. And I think you met some pretty inspiring people in that veterinary clinic that you started at that really opened up some possibilities when it came to veterinary medicine. So who were these wonderful individuals and what doors did they open for you?
Oh, they were two technicians named Becky and Amy, and they had graduated from Michigan State and they were credential technicians. Now, going into all of this, I had no idea what a technician was. Like, I had no idea. I didn't know they were a thing. My brain had decided that if you were going to go into vet med, it was either doctor or nothing. And I had no clue that there was a thing as a technician, let alone like a credential technician that you could go and earn, your license and get education and like do it, right? This wasn't just an on the job thing. You could understand the science behind it. You could understand the disease processes. You could understand why, which is a big deal for me. I always want to know why. And so in working closer with Becky and Amy, they, of course, were huge advocates for the role, and they were really, really inspiring to me. They were very early mentors in my life of, hey, you could do this. And there's a program at Michigan State that's awesome. And it's not even that far from here. And we loved it. You should check it out. And because of them, that's what gave me that initial push to check out veterinary technology, to, go look at different programs. I did eventually end up going to the tech program at Michigan State, and I really, truly have them to thank for it.
And then from school, you had several different types of veterinary experiences. So, but you also said you left school with a very optimistic, bright-eyed, I don't think you said naive,
That's a fair word to say.
very excited and not thinking about any potential negative things, but that maybe you had heard whispers of that this is not easy peasy. So what was kind of that experience leaving school and starting to get more into different jobs around veterinary medicine?
In school, I was very blessed and lucky and am still grateful for the experience that I had. The program at Michigan State is a veterinary technology program. They call it veterinary nursing now. It has changed. But at the time where I was there, it was veterinary technology. And it was a separate program, but it was run through the College of Veterinary Medicine. And so we were going alongside the DVM students. We had different classes, we had a different curriculum, like it was a different deal, but we were in the same building. And when we went on clinics, we were on clinics together. And it was a fantastic opportunity, right? It was a really cool experience because you had tech students and DVM students. The DVM students they respected the heck out of us. We respected the heck out of them. We worked together really, really well. And during the last few years, especially on clinics, you would hear whispers of the veterinary profession, is struggling sometimes, and you're not going to make the money you think you're going to make. And, that's great that you're credentialed, but it's not going to always matter. And, people out there in the world have no idea what a tech is. It's not going to be all unicorns and rainbows like what you're experiencing now. And there was definitely a voice in my head that was like, ever? Like, it's going to be great. Like, it's great. Look at all of these DVM students that are going to go out into the world and take this experience with them. And how could they not utilize us to the top of our license? We're so educated. We have all these skills. How could they not include us on the veterinary healthcare team? How on earth could there be a struggle for a veterinary technician in this role? There's just no way. And if there is a way, it definitely won't happen to me. This definitely won't get challenging for me. This definitely won't weigh on me. Like, there's no way. Yeah, that's the naive thing about it, right? Because as we all know, and as our listeners I'm sure can relate to and have heard, there are a heck of a lot of challenges that come with veterinary medicine. Yes, the money's not great. Yes, veterinary technicians are not utilized to the top of their license the way that they should be. Credentialing is a whole separate conversation. Licensing, whole separate conversation. There are challenges. The public has no idea what we are. All those things, right? And as I went through, my different professional experiences after school, ever so slightly, and if every, week, one of those things would start to become a little bit clearer. And there would be a situation where I was, pushed aside for a skill that I absolutely had because somebody else, could, should, or had, more right to do it. Or, yeah, the paycheck wasn't the numbers I wanted it to be. Or, yeah, I wasn't, being asked to be included in on some of the cases or situations or ideas. And they kind of became clear in that picture of what the challenges are in veterinary medicine, and for me, technicians specifically. And I remember about, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 years in, I thought, oh God, all those things that people warned me of are like actually happening out there. I need to make sure that they don't happen to me because they're not going to happen to me, but I just need to make sure because they're like an actual threat. And like I said, every month, every new position, every new team, every new experience definitely brought to light one of those things that made me go, there's that challenge again. I mean, I was naive in school. It's true.
So I want to ask current Andi,
Mm-hmm.
with all of your knowledge now and your expertise in positive psychology and
Mm-hmm.
culture and all the things,
Mm-hmm.
looking back at the scenario of people warning of the challenges in veterinary medicine, what is the best approach to support students that are in an amazing scenario? You're getting excited, you're ready to go out and be professionals. What is the right, I don't know if balance is the right word, but how do we best prepare in a supportive, empowering way
Mm-hmm.
at that stage? Like, how would you best encourage veterinary professionals?
I love this. This is such a good question, Megan. For me, the thing that was missing was that empowerment component. And I really think that these challenges are legit challenges and that we need to talk about them. We need to be transparent about them. There is not a whole lot of benefit that comes from ignoring them or hiding them or not bringing them up because they'll figure it out eventually. I think having conversations about what they are is critical, and continuing that conversation by sharing resources, by sharing realistic ways to manage that chaos, that adversity, those emotions that are going to show up, because they're gonna. And when they do, what can we do about it? That empowering component that I think is really important, because it's not always going to be easy. And there are ways to navigate this in positive and productive ways that will allow us to continue to be excited every morning when we wake up, to look forward to contributing to this awesome profession that we're a part of. It's not all doom and gloom, right? Vet med isn't broken. It's just we need to understand more about what's out there for us and what tools and skills and support systems we have and need so that we can continue to productively navigate our day.
So, if you were able to give words of wisdom to Andi about to get out of vet school, what would you say that what would be the difference? It sounds like, yes, conversations about the challenges, but what's one or two tweaks that maybe you could bring to at least give them the tools to be able to deal with some of those challenges?
Absolutely. I think current Andi would encourage past Andi to intentionally go out and get some of those skills, develop some of those skills, because they're going to be just as important as the technical stuff that I'm so excited about being able to do. It's really cool to put a central line in a dehydrated chihuahua and like hit it and do it and get it in and get it taped and doing it. And communicating with your team is equally as important. And maybe I didn't get that stuff in school, which I didn't. Now, it's been many years since I've gone to school. Things are starting to change a little bit. But chances are we're not getting that stuff at a level that we need. And so you're worth it, right? Your success is worth it. The light that you create for yourself within this profession is worth it. And finding ways to make it shine as brightly as possible is always going to pay off. So if you didn't get this stuff in school, which I know you didn't, Andi, maybe intentionally go out and find some way to build those skills or have conversations with people that can help guide and support you along the way.
And luckily, you did at least appreciate communications back in undergrad. I think that's a great point. All of the communication skills that are also very transferable are probably going to come in even more need. When we leave vet school, we prioritize that medical knowledge. And just encouraging the appreciation of all those other communication people skills, because you're going to use it whether it's within your team or with clients. And I think when you're able to communicate things a little bit better, and I'm sure you could probably talk a lot on that and how that can also improve culture and overall experience in a job.
Yeah. I love what you just pointed out, Megan. The idea that communication is critical to human connection, regardless of where those humans are, right? Whether or not they're colleagues and team members, whether or not they're clients, whether or not they're friends and family, whether or not it's the guy behind you at the grocery store, right? Like, as humans, we communicate. And when we communicate, we connect with one another. And because of that connection, we create a culture. And often, it can be a productive and meaningful and magical and engaging culture. And sometimes it can be quite the opposite. But often that will start with communication, how we communicate with one another as humans.
Now, you had a moment that you described as feeling very sudden when a lot of emotions kind of came all at once, and you showed signs of what we can call burnout. And one of those is the feeling of what I call as apathy, where you don't care as much anymore. And that impacted you when you realized that you were having those feelings. So can you kind of describe that moment and what you did about that?
Yeah. Megan, that's a moment I will never forget. It is a moment that I was very disappointed in myself for a really long time for even feeling, but have since been able to work through, and I understand more, right, about what it is and why it showed up for me. But it happened not too long ago, but I was working at a big hospital, busy hospital, lots going on. I had a fantastic team of technicians. I worked with some really great humans, some incredible doctors, some awesome patients. I mean, it was large animals. So we had all sorts of really cool patients, all sorts of like variety, right? Like all of the things that you hope for in veterinary medicine. And I was doing it. And the moment that it hit me, so I know that this was all building and happening, like leading up until this moment, but that moment that really took me by the shoulders and shook me was a day that we were insanely busy with a gajillion patients. Every stall was full. My treatment tech team was short-staffed, right? Because nobody can relate to that. And we had a couple of upset clients up front, and it was chaos. Like, it was full-blown chaos. And I was one of the leaders. And so everybody was turning to me for, what are we going to do? How are we going to do this? How are we going to get it done? What's going to happen? And I literally said the words, I don't know. Sometimes to get through days like this, you have to simply not care. That, like, it's still hard for me to think about that. The fact that I would say that to anybody is not me at all. Because if you haven't figured out by now, I care a lot. I have a lot to say. I care a lot. And for that to come out of my mouth, that made me realize that something wasn't right, that something was happening, and that something needed to change. And I did. I took a bit of time to kind of reflect on what that was, because that's a disappointing thing to come out of my mouth. And I needed to understand why it came out of my mouth. And understanding more about what burnout is, what compassion fatigue is, understanding what that does to our brains, that helped me realize that it wasn't that I didn't love veterinary medicine anymore, because I thought that for a long time, right? I thought, oh God, if I don't care, well, then clearly vet med, it's just not for me anymore. And there needs to be something else. And I need to bail, I need to jump ship. I need to go find something else that I do care about. But here it is, that voice that has a way of noodling its way into my thoughts kept telling me, but Andi, vet med is where you love to be. Vet med matters to you. Vet med is important to you, Remember how important it was to you? Remember how math didn't matter that much once you got in it and how much you loved it? And I kept having these conversations with myself. And it took a minute, right? Because the easy way out would have been jump ship, find something else, go a different route. But that voice wouldn't let me do it because it knew how much vet med meant to me and how important it really was. And so I realized that it wasn't vet med that was the problem. It was more the tools. It was more how we communicate with vet med. It was more how we show up. It was more the situation that needed some adjusting. And it was at that time, right? The universe has a way that I was able to go to a conference. I went to the FVMA conference in Orlando, and I got to listen to somebody very important and exciting talking a little bit more about this exact thing. The fact that we can thrive in veterinary medicine, that it is possible, and that I wasn't alone for feeling this way, and that there were things that we could actually do to create spaces that allowed us to get excited about getting up and going to work and looking forward to that difference that we made. And that came at a great time because it reminded me and it showed me that nobody was broken. It wasn't broken. We just needed to regroup. We just needed to really kind of focus on another component of veterinary medicine that could help strengthen that foundation. And for me, that's what positive psychology is. And that's kind of what I needed.
Well, going back to what you said about it's about knowing the tools or having the resources to navigate. And I'm sorry if I took too much into this, but you said something about not alone in your feelings. Did you feel alone? Was that a big part of your concern?
Yes and no. That's a really good observation and a really good question because I didn't feel alone in the fact that I was struggling in veterinary medicine, okay? Because a lot of people and a lot of us are talking about the challenge that comes with being a veterinary professional. If we're being totally honest, what I think I felt alone in was the fact that I didn't want to feel that way. I didn't want to not care. I didn't want to find another path. I didn't want to give up vet med in search of something else. And so because I didn't want that, but I didn't know what else to do, I think that's where the loneliness set in.
All the more to find these stories and to share our stories because that's when we start to realize how not alone we are sometimes. And I'm so glad that you found Josh Weissman.
Yes, that is that very amazing human that I had the chance to go and see speak at the conference so many years ago.
I loved how you were describing, like, yeah, he had several different talks and you went to all of them. And each time you got a little bit closer to the front of the room, went up and asked questions between each one. And he had some great tools and resources. So what did you do after hearing these good messages around hope, and what tools did you leave with?
That afternoon in Josh's sessions were and always will be a very defining moment in my life. Josh was saying the things that I knew were possible, but had never heard anyone else say out loud. And you're right. Every session, I literally moved closer and closer to the front of the room, and I harassed him in between each session with like all kinds of questions and thoughts. And after that magical day, I remember going home. And of course, I like stalked Flourish on Facebook, and I wanted to understand more about exactly what this guy was about and what the company was about and where they got all this information and like what is positive psychology and tell me more. And so I did what all good science nerds do and like went down the rabbit hole of what's positive psychology? What's Josh's education? What does that mean? What is organizational psychology? Oh my gosh, there's like science behind all of this, and there's tons of it. Josh talked about some of that science, but man, he only scratched the surface. And so I absolutely totally went down that rabbit hole. And then I kind of shifted to think, okay, so Josh is onto something here, and Flourish has got something figured out. Surely, Megan, there's a whole bunch of other organizations out here that are doing this. Surely there's a ton of opportunity. Surely these conversations are being had all over veterinary medicine. And you're kind of smiling with that smirk on your face because you know as well as I do that I kind of came up with an emptier basket than I thought I would, right? So, yes, these conversations are being had. Yes, there are opportunities out there. Yes, the science is not under lock and key, and it is nowhere near what I thought it would be. And that is literally when I was like, oh my gosh, everybody needs to hear about this. Like, from the mountaintops, need to start screaming this good news because it is something we can do. Thriving in vet med is possible. And it's because of this amazing stuff that I heard Josh speak about. And so, just trying to find ways or little ideas or concepts to kind of pay attention to and notice or implement in my life or, find a new article every week or just start to welcome that science into my life in a way that made sense for me was really the very, very first step. Of course, I continued to stay in touch with Josh and ask questions, and I don't know how many Facebook messages I sent him. I remember we connected via Zoom after the conference, right? Things like that, which beautifully led to the position that I'm in now. But I don't know that that would have happened if I hadn't embraced that excitement, that like, oh my gosh, people need to hear this. Like, it is possible. I'm not crazy for thinking that it is possible to flourish in this profession because it is the best profession in the whole wide world. And it is possible to flourish in it. And here is something that's going to help us do that.
And so when we think about positive psychology, I think it's a mindset, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, we talked about tools and things like that, but it's a mindset. So is there an example, maybe that you walked away after hearing Josh talk, like there was one thing that you could start to think differently, do differently, that really enforced the thriving is possible?
Mm-hmm.
Like, is there something we can kind of give as more of an example that's a little more tangible?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for pushing on that. I love examples. I get excited, right? Like, clearly, see, it's no surprise that I care a lot. I think that one of the big things that we can do, right, in order to help us in that growth mindset and to remind ourselves that it is possible to thrive in veterinary medicine is there's two things. Can I share two things? Awesome. The first one is to remember your why. And I get it. That is easier said than done. It really is. It is, we get busy, we get, years and years into our profession, into, our role and our clinic and all the things. And it can be really hard sometimes to keep that in focus. And finding ways to remind ourselves of how the thing that we're doing today. So a really good example I have of this is one of the reasons why I love being a veterinary professional is that I get to care for animals. I get to give a voice to an animal that doesn't have a voice of its own. I get to advocate for them and make sure that they're being, properly cared for and that they're being listened to. And as an equine technician, that is huge and very close to my heart, right? Because the horse girl thing. And so that's a big why for me. And life happens. You're going about your day. You're doing your thing. You have to stock the truck. You have to go out in the 100-degree weather and take radiographs. There's an extra Coggins you have to have. So-and-so's, whatever, right? Like all the things that make your day your day. And it can be hard sometimes to lose sight of that big why, the reason that I get up in the morning, the reason that I'm a part of this team. And I found that if we can make a point to think about how the thing that we're doing today affects that big why, that can be really helpful. So, yeah, I have to get up early, show up at the hospital 20 minutes early to stock the truck to make sure we have all the stuff that we need out on the road day. But you know what? If I'm sure to make sure that we have all the stuff that we need out on the road today, that's going to allow me and my team to care for our patients and to advocate for them in a way that matters because I'm there to give them a voice because they don't have a voice of their own. And so continuing that conversation with yourself, take those everyday tasks, right? Yeah, it's 100 degrees. I have to get out here and take radiographs. And wow, squatting under this horse is really killing me right now. And the horse can't tell us where it hurts. And I'm being its voice right now by squatting up under this horse, holding the plate, making sure all the things are happening, and tying some of those everyday tasks into that big why that matters for you can be really helpful. The second one is a little bit broader, but I think that it's really super powerful. And it's one that I've come to realize, like, the more that I get to have these conversations and the more that I'm in this space and the more people that I come in contact with and talk to every day, get curious. Get really curious. Not just, why are we doing it this way? What would it be like if we did it a different way? Not just, how was your weekend? But tell me something exciting that happened to you this weekend. Get curious with yourself. Get curious with other people. Invite them in. What do you think? Tell me more about why that's important for you. Get curious. Find ways to be genuinely excited to learn more. And this is awesome because you can implement that with yourself, right? Get curious. Well, I can't do math. Math is really hard. Okay, Andi, but I'm curious. You've been able to do hard things before, so what's different about math? Get curious. Get curious with your team, you know? Gosh, it seems like you're really dragging your feet when it comes to stocking the truck. Help me understand more about what you might need there. Get curious with your clients. I know that let's see, what's a good example? I know that we've prescribed antibiotics, and here we are again. We're looking at this skin laceration, and it's just not healing up. Help me understand what's standing in the way between you and keeping this horse on antibiotics consistently. Get curious and listen to whatever comes next. You'll probably learn something that you didn't realize, right? That you didn't expect going in, and that will help you, will help your clients, will help your teams, and will ultimately help your patients because we're here in order to create a voice and to care for and advocate for the animals that cannot speak for themselves. And as vet med, that is a beautiful reason why.
Love how you directed that back to being curious about yourself too. I think I am speaking generally, but I think a lot of people in veterinary medicine are very self-critical and we give ourselves a hard time. And if we turn that curiosity in on ourselves too, I think that is also a really special gift to find the thriving, to find the happiness.
Yeah.
So that was a very good point.
Oh, you nailed it. It starts in our own head, right? Like it starts in our head and we can be very, very critical of ourselves. And the one I love, right? Like it's always good to have little questions or little thoughts or like little scripty scripts because sometimes this stuff is hard because it's really easy for us to be self-critical and just accept that and move on because we've been doing that for our whole lives. And that's how, our neuro pathways are smoothest. So when we go to make that change, it can be kind of awkward and a little bit intimidating to sometimes get curious with ourselves. The question I love is, that's not true because, and I guess it's not a question, but it's still pushing back and getting curious, Andi, you're just not good at math. You've never been really good at math. Well, that's not true because. Well, I just don't know that so-and-so is going to be up to snuff here, and I'm sure Mrs. Jones just hasn't been giving me antibiotics. Well, that's not true because. Using that to kind of get curious with yourself can be a really awesome, fascinating, impactful way to kind of rewire that conversation in a way that promotes thriving and promotes possibility.
And speaking about being hard on ourselves, you almost didn't even apply for the job you have now. That was a big part of getting your dream job as of right now. So do you want to share a little bit about how you had to be convinced to apply?
Oh gosh, you're so right. You're so right. I remember that. After my awesome experience with Josh, right, and learning more about what he does with Flourish and what the Flourish team does and how it supports veterinary medicine, of course, I got super excited about Flourish. And about halfway down this rabbit hole of, well, what is positive psychology and how everyone needs to hear this and all of those things, during one of my Facebook stalking moments, I noticed that Flourish was looking to add to the team. And they were looking to hire a positive change agent. And my very first thought, even now, right? Like my very first thought was, I'm not possibly qualified to do this. Wouldn't it be cool to do that job? But there's no way that I'm qualified to do it. That is absolutely what I thought. I convinced myself once again that I wasn't qualified and there was no way. I was, quote, just a technician. I have words for that past Andi because there is so much possibility there. And thankfully, I have a wonderful friend. Her name is April, and she did what I needed. I was telling her about the position. I was telling her all about, what I was learning and what Flourish was all about and that there was this opportunity. And she looked right at me and said, well, you're going to apply for it, right? And of course, I came up with all the excuses. Well, no, I can't. I'm not qualified and there's no way that it's going to work out. And the deadline is coming up and I just don't. Every excuse in the book. And God bless her. She took me by the shoulders literally and she looked me right in the face and she said, Andi, I can tell how badly you want this job. It would be perfect for you. Please apply for it. You are absolutely qualified. Don't regret this. And of course, we both started crying because she's that kind of friend and I love her to pieces. She is the friend that can say the hard thing to me, be out of love. And that is what I needed. And because of her, I applied for the position and here we are. And I get to wake up every morning to my dream job. And it absolutely is. I love what I do. I love every component of my role within veterinary medicine. I am proud and honored to support the humans of veterinary medicine so that they can thrive in this career because it's totally possible.
And you have done some really exciting things. I know not long ago you got back from a trip that you co-led in Zimbabwe, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was Zimbabwe?
Yeah.
And you got to do safari rides and all of the things you got to teach.
Mm-hmm.
You're creating education. I don't know if you're still doing your PhD program, right?
I'm finished. And it's not PhD. I know it's okay. I just don't want to false advertising, right? I have earned a graduate certificate in positive communication and conflict management. Yeah. It was wonderful. Great program. Mm-hmm.
Love it.
Thank you.
Well, I know we have a minute left. What is something you want to make sure that you encourage from your personal experience to the veterinary audience?
The big thing that I would love veterinary professionals and aspiring veterinary professionals to hear is that it is possible to thrive in this career. It is. There are skills, there are tools, there are people on your side that want you to thrive. And you can. You don't have to listen to the whispers. Maybe do listen to the whispers, but listen to them knowing that there are skills and that science that will help support you through your career, that it's worth it, that you're worth it, and that you're going to be a heck of an addition to this already amazing profession.
I love that. And a final question that I ask everyone.
Okay.
What is something that you are very grateful for right now?
I am grateful for, I am grateful for the love and support of my friends. There's been a lot going on in my world lately. And knowing that I have incredible humans to fall back on that will help lift me up, that will be there to say the hard thing, that will be there to make me laugh when they know that that's what I need, to help me out when I'm in a bind, to just be amazing humans. I have some amazing humans in my life, and I am grateful as all get out for them.
Andi came into veterinary medicine despite her own self-doubts, and she has a mission that nobody else has to navigate those doubts alone. If this conversation reminded you that thriving in this profession is possible, not someday, but now, with the right tools and the right support, I hope you'll hold on to that. And if you're not quite there yet, I hope you'll get curious about what's standing in the way, about what might be different, about what you'd do if you really believed you were worth it, because Andi would tell you you are. If you want to learn more about Flourish Veterinary Consulting and the work Andi and her team are doing to help veterinary professionals thrive, links are in the show notes. And if today's episode sparked something for you, I encourage you to reach out to her directly. She is genuinely one of those people who lights up when someone asks for help. For the key takeaways, reflection questions, and tools from today's episode, make sure you check out the Sprinkle of Wisdom Substack for the Podcast Club Guide. And because I love giving you a laundry list of things to do, please subscribe to the podcast, leave a review if you're enjoying the show, and share this episode with someone in veterinary medicine who needs to hear that it is possible to love this profession and feel good doing it. Again, the show notes have all your resources, and until next time, keep reimagining what's possible in veterinary life.